Yeah, that's the main aim, I think, just to try and pick a research question. Because I always emphasize picking something that you're really interested about as the main thing and sort of going from there. But everything starts as really broad. So that's definitely something I'd like to go into, just how you kind of refine your interests and how you can make it tangible. So yeah, thank you for having me. I hope it's useful.
Yeah, hopefully it's going to be very useful. I'm so excited. Oh, my video is closed. Here I am. I just noticed it. So we are all over the world. I'm in Istanbul.
Oh wow.
Yeah, most of my students be in Istanbul. I have two students located in Seattle, but I am
Oh
not
wow.
sure if they are going to be with us.
Mm.
Other than that, all my students who are going to with us today are all from the west coast of Turkey, Istanbul or Izmir,
Oh, okay, brilliant. Yeah,
Turkish
we are all
students.
over.
So, Harriet, what is your PhD about?
So I'm currently studying hypertension and the effect of hypertension on the blood-brain barrier. So
Oh,
using some models, some cellular models. So 3D brain organoids is the main sort of goal, but it takes a while to get there. But that's my general research question. So yeah,
what was
it's
your
going.
what was your undergraduate degree?
So my undergraduate degree was neuroscience on its own. And then I did actually take 2 years out before joining my PhD program to really have a think. And then now I'm here, which is exciting.
Perfect. Hi, Yoshi.
Hi, Benar, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We are waiting until 8 o'clock.
Cool.
Pinar, have your students and colleagues joined? Are we ready to start in like a minute or two?
We can wait until 8, like a couple of more minutes. Then we can start. They will come one after the other.
All right, okay.
Just wait for 1 more minute, maybe. I think we can start there coming, and I think we can start, Harriet, if you will.
Perfect.
All right.
Cool. So I think I'll just start and then maybe I can pass it off to Harriet. So I'll give a quick introduction of perhaps who we are and so on.
Sure,
So
sure.
yeah, firstly, I'll just introduce myself to everyone, I guess, in the room. So I'm Yash. I'm a co-founder at Rise. Started this company around a year ago. Some personal background about myself is that I graduated from India. Actually, I'm a software engineer. I worked in software engineering for a while. I worked at Amazon. I worked at Facebook before deciding to do start Rise full time. And we're joined with Harriet today, who's a PhD in clinical neurosciences, a PhD student, sorry, in clinical neurosciences from the University of Oxford as well. So can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So RISE is basically an organization that helps students conduct research. So we pair students up with PhD mentors from some of the best universities in the world. So Harriet is a mentor from our team, for example, and we pair them up with PhD mentors, and you write a research paper over 2 to 3 months in a one-on-one with the mentor. So that is basically what RISE does. We came about starting RISE because we saw how many students really struggle with direction earlier on in their careers, and that was something that we wanted to fix. So next slide, please. So this is myself and my co-founder Shreyans. So again, that's how we started RISE. Yeah. Next slide. So I'll just give you one or two examples of students who have done research with us. So Harriet has also helped a lot in neuroscience. We've helped a lot of students, but this is just one example. So the student, for example, did a combined research paper on mathematics and music. So it's a bit of mathematics, a bit of music, and a bit of psychology as well. And it was published in the International Journal for Multidisciplinary Research, so IJFMR, which is a very good high school journal to be able to publish in. So we were able to help him publish there as well. Next slide, please. So far we've helped around 1,000 students across diverse fields of studies. We have around 300 mentors from the top universities such as the Ivies, Oxford, Cambridge as well. And we have almost 40 countries represented in our student communities, as well as research publications in international journals and conferences. So if anyone is interested in starting RISE, I'm sure Pinar will share more details with you as well. And in the
Yeah,
meantime,
whenever.
I'll put something in the chat as well, maybe a brochure and some more information so you can have a read of that in your own time. But yeah, I think I'll hand over to Harriet now to take over. And thank you all. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. I think it is so important what Yash said about it's quite difficult in early career stages. So when you're at high school to direct research and understand where to really start your research journey. So that's what I'll primarily focus on today. But as Yash said, I'm Harriet, and I'm currently a DPhil student at the University of Oxford. So I'm studying clinical neurosciences, and my background is neuroscience as well. And I would say that I started research around 16 years old. And this was just to do with a question. I was very curious about a particular disease and treatments, and I've been researching it ever since. But this session is all about you guys, so I want it to be really helpful. So at any point, if anyone has any questions, please do stop me. And at the end, I'll take a few questions about anything really to do with research. It's for you guys to understand how to start your journey, what to research. So please do just ask anything. I want this to be as helpful for you as possible. But I'll just start by saying, has anyone ever been really curious about something, or just thought, I wonder how that works and how this got discovered, or anything like that? Because that's how all research questions start. And once you start delving into this research, you can really make an impact in a journal, or you can make an impact to your peers. You can make an impact in any area that you find exciting. And that's the main emphasis, something that you find exciting and interesting. So can I go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So what is research, and why do we do it? So there are several factors why you would want to do research, but the most important, I think, is that it will create this impact and new knowledge, because in any field we're always learning, and that's why anyone takes research ultimately, is to just keep on learning. And I think that's what's really important, that you love learning and you love finding out more and more about a particular topic. It can also really enhance university applications. The way that research teaches you to critically think can really help in your university interviews, for example. It can give you a really good foundation to talk at an interview or even on a CV. It makes you stand out for the fact that you've already gone away and independently researched something that you found interesting. And if your research is important to you, this will naturally come that you want to learn more, and you'll be able to create an impact and impart some new knowledge, whether that's in a very small niche, or whether it's in quite a broad disease and you've actually found out something really interesting because you have a different point of view. And it's an exciting thing to be a young researcher, because you're constantly learning and you're developing this niche. So I think it's a really exciting opportunity to be starting research. You get a bit further down it and it's still exciting, but to be young and really interested is absolutely amazing. So I think that's why everyone gets into research. And of course, it does open doors to journals and conferences, and the opportunity to present your research, which enhances presentation skills. So research is just very important, and the key is always just to be very interested in what you're looking at. So can I have the next slide, please? So the way we think of research is to spot the peak first. So you'd identify a topic of interest, any topic. It could be cheese, it could be dementia, it could be any mountains, why there is snow on this mountain, why there isn't on another. It can be any topic you like. So just identify a topic, something that you find interesting, whether you read about it on the news, you read about it in a book, you find something that you think is very interesting. And then what you can do is you choose your path. So you choose a path, and this is framing your research question. And this can be things like, are you looking to future? Are you looking at future treatments for a disease? Are you looking at past treatments? Are you looking at the history of something? This is where you start framing. So you want to pick where you're kind of looking in your topic. And once you've done that, you pack some tools. So these things are probably the key to really good research, is literature reviews. And these may not be as fun as writing your own research, but they are so crucial to understand the lay of the land and where people have made research before you, and then you can build off that, because everything is always building off other people's ideas. It's a massive team sport. People think that research is just singular, but by talking to others or reading others' work, you'll become so knowledgeable about this topic. So this is a really crucial part, is something like a literature review, and thinking about maybe the methods by which you'll research your question. So if you'll use Google Scholar, if you'll use PubMed, what kind of keywords will you be looking for? That will be your sort of tool element. And then you begin what I think is the very fun part, which is beginning the climb. So you're writing, you're refining, you're picking extracts of research you think is brilliant. You're maybe still having a bit of analysis over some new journals that you've read, perhaps. So you're beginning this climb to really shaping your research project. And I think that's such an exciting thing when you see it take form on a document, and you see where the future of this research is going. And once you're really happy with it, you will publish or present your work. So there's so many journals. So when I was younger, I published in the British Neuroscience Association. So they do a summer bulletin. It wasn't a big impact journal, but it was something that got my research across. And even if it's a small sort of just a seasonal little magazine that gets printed, it's still absolutely brilliant to be published in something like that, especially when you're younger. And it's so good to talk to universities, and even if you just make your classmates sit through a short talk and you present your research, that's still something to refer to in your university applications. So I'm going to go to the next slide, if that's okay. If anyone wants to share what makes them wonder, or what makes them curious, even admins, if you want to step in and say anything that makes you really curious, and something that you've read about that you think is interesting at the moment, because what does make you wonder is your research. Does anyone? Yeah.
The group doesn't know each other that much, as I am the independent educational counselor. They might feel a little bit reserved when asking questions.
That is completely fine. That is completely fine. So this,
guys, you can ask questions whenever you want.
Yeah, please do interject at any point, guys. Or if you feel more comfortable, put something on the chat, and I can make sure that I answer the question as well through the chat. But one of the most crucial steps is choosing your research question, and you have to focus on what makes you really interested, what makes you wonder, because sometimes this is what people struggle with the most, is you can't identify what makes you wonder or what you're really interested in. So you need to read around sometimes as well, to find out something like that. So the next slide, please. So why does a research question matter? This is, again, very crucial. We need to pick a question that is within your scope of understanding. So you need to pick something that you can investigate and learn more about, but you need to pick something that you feel comfortable learning more about, and you feel that it is A, interesting, but B, also within your reach, because you don't want to be someone who is, for example, myself, I'm terrible at computers, or software, so I would not research something in, as Yash is very accomplished, something like software engineering, because that wouldn't be, I don't think I'd be very good at that. It's not really within my scope of understanding, and maybe I could learn a bit more, but I'd want to do something that I think I could grasp. It's a concept that I could grasp if I learned more about it. So this is why your research question matters. You need to pick something interesting and sort of within the scope of your current understanding, because it will make it easier to write later down the line. So if a research topic is a field, the question is your compass. So it's how you navigate that field is your question. So you'll have an explore of the field, but at the end, what we really want you to do is be able to refine a question that allows you to discover the field, because a field is very, very large and it's quite difficult to explore every avenue. So what you need to do fairly early on is to say, look, I'm really interested in this. I think I might be interested in the frame of the history of this subject. So I might look at this time period, for example, and as you go down, you will narrow down your question, and that makes the field more accessible to explore. Otherwise, you could write a research paper for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages. So that's really why the research question matters. So next slide, please. So what should a research question be? So what are we talking about when we say this is a really good research question? So it should be clear, it should be focused, it should be researchable, and it should be significant. So what do I mean by saying those things? Because that is quite obvious. There has to be clear, focused, researchable, and significant. So it has to be clear that you are researching one topic. So you wouldn't add in 3 different topics, say hypertension, dementia, and cheese. We wouldn't add those things together. It has to be clear you're researching, let's say, dementia, or you're researching a new bioinformatics program. You're researching something very clear, and it has to be focused. So it has to be small enough that you can go quite deep into this subject. So you don't want to pick, you want to pick a topic, but you want to pick an aspect of this topic that you can actually delve significantly into. Because if it's too broad, then you won't be able to focus down. And like I said, you could end up writing for hundreds of pages. So it has to be very clear and it has to be very focused. And then it also needs to be researchable. So you need to research something that A is within the scope of your understanding or potential understanding, and B, it needs to actually have some data, or someone has to have done at least something towards this, even whether it's just all hypothetical. You need to have something tangible that you can actually refer back to. All groundbreaking research, it's still groundbreaking research, but I can guarantee you that someone came before that and probably thought about some hypotheticals about this, and then that person's read about it and done the actual research. But it's very difficult to just make something out of nothing. So it has to be very researchable. And then it has to be significant. So why are we doing it? There needs to be a reason, any reason behind a research question. So if someone's done the exact same research, try and take a different angle, because then at least it's a bit more significant and that it will add to the field. There are gaps all over the place. You can always take a different angle. So it needs to be fairly significant, that it will add something to the field of knowledge that you're looking at. And so what we want to do is avoid overly broad or general topics. So the examples here, so the impact of climate change on rice yields in Karnataka from 2015 to 2025, that's quite specific. But something that wouldn't be a very good topic would be, is climate change real? Or is climate change bad? So this is where we're going from vague to valuable. So we're going from, is climate change real? Very obvious. It is, for those, if you're not sure. It is real. It's quite bad. But that's very broad. You could go into countless avenues. But if we're going from this question, so how has the rising temperature affected the rice yields? This is really positive because we've defined a frame. So our frame is the time period. We've got a clear focus. We're looking at rising temperature and we're looking at rice yields. That's researchable because I'm sure that there is there's some reports out there giving you some actual quantitative data that you can look at. So these are things that are measurable, they're researchable, it's very clear, and it's focused to a smaller avenue that you can delve quite deep into. And this makes your discussion, so the part of your research where you evaluate what you're saying and the real world applications, this is when it makes it more meaningful. If you've done some really deep research into a topic, it makes the discussion that much better because you're really evaluating the real world impact of your research. And one thing I want to say about research is that even if you don't find anything, not finding anything is still interesting. So if you do a research paper and you find out that actually the rising temperature hasn't affected the rice yields, even if you don't find that there's a significant rising temperature and that's declined all the yields, it's still interesting because why has that not happened? So then people can then build off that. So even if you don't find out something so super interesting, that's very significant, and there's a dramatic change, that is still interesting. That happens all the time in research. Maybe people don't scream about those on something like a nature journal, but it's really important to show sometimes that your research hasn't been significant and nothing is still interesting. So another example of vague to valuable would be something like, is social media bad? I'm sure if there's any parents, they might be thinking about this. But a better question would be, how does TikTok, so we're refining our avenue straight away to an app instead of Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, so many. I think I'm too old to even know all of them now. But how does TikTok affect sleep quality? So we've got a measurable parameter, sleep quality. You could look at sleep length. You could look at sort of how long people are spending on their screens. Is it affecting their eyes? You could look at anything to do with the retina. You need to just pick a measurable avenue. So that would be sleep quality. And then we're also picking a frame. So this could be the time frame, like we were looking at the rice yields, or this could be an age group. So we're looking at 13 to 18-year-olds specifically. So this is a really brilliant research question. And this is how you go from something that you're interested in to something that you can actually research. Does anyone have any questions yet, or are we all fine? Just check the chat. Cool. Next slide, please. So now we're talking about frameworks. So it's quite a nice analogy to think about research as you're sculpting some clay. So you have a big block of clay, and how do you achieve this lovely, beautiful vase or mug that you're dreaming of? How do you get from a big lump of clay to that nice vase or mug? And what you do is you really need to just think, you need to think critically about what's already happened. So what have people done before? Evaluate other people's models. Have people made mugs? Have people made vases? Have people made cutlery? Have people made plates? Have a look at what other people have done. So this is your literature research. So you're looking at what everyone else has done in the knowledge field that you're looking at. And especially if you, and then what this does is it really helps you define your project. So when I'm mentoring, I always say, what's something that you think is cool? And we'll talk about it. And then the homework will be, go away and research 3 papers for me. You don't have to read the whole paper. You need to read the title. You need to read the abstract, which is the first very small introduction. I want you to have a read of 3 that you find really interesting. You don't need to understand it. You just need to show me it. And what we'll do is we go back through and you say, okay, so you think this is interesting, and we'll take bits from each research paper, and that helps you define your project. So if you find something that's interesting with the framework, we start with something that you think is cool, and then we narrow down from broad. And the way we do that is with a literature research, because it also helps you find out what you think is interesting. If you read something and you're like, oh my God, that's so boring, then you go off it. But then if you find something really cool, we can unpick that further, and it really helps you narrow down your avenue and narrow down your niche. So that's why the framework is so important. Next slide.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
Do you go back and review the framework? Does the framework change, the question change during the research period? Can you go and revise the question?
Yeah, I think it's always possible to revise the question. I do try to avoid it. I think for long research, so for example, if you're doing longer than 8 weeks, potentially, but with the time frame that we mentor for, I really try to focus down quite quickly. So use the first 2 sessions to really get to know what the student is interested in, potentially throwing a few ideas out there myself, researching what they're interested in, and going from there, just to try and refine it quite quickly, because then you can really delve into the research later. And although it seems like a longer time period of 8 weeks, it's actually quite short. So I would typically not change it, but it's always subject to revision. Say if you wanted to change the time period, especially if something isn't as researchable, as it was originally thought to be, and we were really struggling to find data to build off. I think I would revise it, but I would try and hone it down quite quick, and just make sure that it doesn't change, probably.
Okay, thank you so much.
So this question is, we're back to the literature review. So this slide rather, but this is what I think is so critical, as you can probably tell. You study the map. So this is the literature review. So it's basically just saying, has someone done this? If so, where are the gaps? So what are we looking at? Are we looking at someone that has evaluated treatment options before, or has evaluated algorithms before, and have they analyzed my my specific interests before, or have they evaluated the future implications? And that kind of thing will again help you really build your research question. So just having a review of what's out there. And like I said, you can use things like Google Scholar, you can use things like PubMed, and the emphasis isn't on understanding a big paper on PubMed or Google Scholar. I think I am probably nearly 10 years into my research journey now, and I still will come across papers that I do not understand. The point is to try and understand the main aims, which will usually be in the abstract, or look at the discussion. And that's where people will be evaluating their research and the translations and implications for future research. So that's where I'd look. So that can be a brilliant starting point for a lit review. So choosing the tools, we are looking at every journey needing the right gear. So I'm loving these analogies going through. So we're looking at something qualitative. So have you got any interviews or case studies out there? Or quantitative, so we'll be looking at surveys or data sets or experiments. So like I said, if we come back to the rice fields question, this is all quantitative tools. So someone might have done a survey in 2019, and if they haven't, but they've done one in 2013, that might make you change your frame. So you might then go, oh gosh, no one's done this for a while. So you might go back earlier to make it more impactful. And then you can also use a mix of methods. So you can use interviews, you can use case studies, you can do surveys, data sets, choosing different experiments from different time periods. You can mix it all up. So this is just choosing the tools, and this is how you again refine your research question, but also how you would look at your lit review as well. So if you're going to share your story, which I think is the most fun part, so when you get to talk to other people about your research and why it matters to you and why it matters in your field. So research is just in your, you have your own research and you're probably really proud of it. And you're thinking, I really thought this is interesting, but maybe, I don't know, will other people? I'm quite nervous to share my research. I'm still nervous to share my research and wonder if someone will pick it apart or anything like that. But the most important thing is just sharing it. I think anyone who enjoys learning will listen to your research, and you're not doing it to become the best person. I mean, you might be doing it to become the best person in the field, but you might also just be doing it because you're really interested, and other people that are really interested will listen to your research. So it really should be shared, and you're doing it in a way that you can do it, like I said, in a small classroom of your friends. You can do it with just a singular teacher that you think might find it interesting. You can put it in a summer journal or an autumn journal or a high school journal. Wherever you direct your research, it's still just important to share it. Even if you share it with your mum and dad, who, they might not be that interested, but they'll pretend to be interested at least. So just share your research, and don't be nervous that anyone will critique it, because most people are very supportive when it comes to research, from what I've found. But most research does follow this simple structure of you're aiming to write for clarity, not jargon. So people who are doing good research will write for clarity. People will talk with clarity. Sometimes people use a lot of big words to confuse people, but I think there is so much power in the simplicity and the clarity of research, because you're actually communicating it. If you use all these big words that no one knows, then you're not being clear and you're not communicating research. So you need to tell a story. So you're not just telling stats, you're not just reciting some numbers off a table in Excel, you're telling a story of perhaps how some research has evolved over a time frame, or how the future will be implicated by what you found out. And you need to follow the very clear structure in all research of introduction, methods, results, discussion, conclusion. So you will draft it, you'll revise it, you'll peer review it, you'll probably draft it again, you'll probably revise it again. And this keeps on going until you have something you're really happy with. And you know when you're happy with something when you're just critiquing grammar, not the actual words. You just keep going and you know that it's finished then. But it's really important to share your research, and do just go for clarity. I just think there's so much power in that. And your discussion is such a fun thing to write because you're just actually evaluating what you've done, and how this could impact any future research. So I think that's the most fun bit. And then the introduction's a lot of your lit review. So you would have done quite a lot of the work to write the introduction already. So that is also quite a fun and bit easier part to write. So next question. So I really hope that this session is being useful so far. I understand that you might be a bit more reserved with questions, but I hope it has been fairly useful. And what I just want everyone to take away from a session like this is that research is all about what you're interested in, and there are so many ways to refine your research question and refine what you're interested in, and it's mostly by reading and being interested in your topic. And the ease of writing something and researching something that you're interested in is significantly better than researching and interesting and writing something that you think sounds cool but maybe you don't actually care about that much. So I think that is my main advice for anyone researching, and that just to share it, just get it out there. Even if it's a blog that you put it on, I think it's always really important to communicate and go for clarity always. Obviously try and publish and present and blog. The student journals and competitions are brilliant ways. People are really interested to hear, and they'll actually really help you. So even if you give something that you think, oh, I'm not sure if it's perfect, someone will help. They always have editors that will go through it with you and say, oh, look, I think your research is brilliant, but maybe change X, Y, and Z, and they'll help you change it as well. Conferences and symposia are brilliant. Even if you just go and listen to research and maybe have a chat to someone about what you've done, that's still communicating your research. You might not be presenting at the conference, but you'll still be talking to people about your research. Online platforms are brilliant, but aim high. But there is so much value in smaller things as well, because it is obviously quite hard to get into conferences and journals and stuff. But any way you share your research, I think, is so valuable. So I hope that's been communicated through the session as well. So the closing question and answer, if you guys do want to say anything or you just want to pop it on the chat, I'm happy to answer any questions. But research does begin with curiosity. The right question is completely your compass to discovering this field, enjoying the field. You need to have your research question. It is your main key to writing any good research. It's just a good question. From vague to valuable, I think that was so important to remember. And then every student here is capable of starting their own research journey. No matter what you're interested in, you're all capable. So I hope you'll give it a go and let one of us mentor you if you wanted to. But I hope this session has been useful in general. But yes, any questions, please pop them on the chat or unmute yourselves. I'm happy to answer anything.
I'll have one more question. As a mentor, what is the process of yours when you're helping a high school student with their research?
So the process will typically be having the initial call, which can always be, students are normally a bit more reserved. So we'll talk about what they find interesting, and I'll go through a bit about my research as well. So sometimes that, especially because you get matched with someone who's based on your expertise. So I'll get matched with someone from neuroscience. So I'll say, what is it that draws you to neuroscience? Are you interested in, for me, my thing is always healthy or not healthy. I think that helps. So if we say healthy, we're looking at normal patients. We might be exploring algorithm or in the NHS and how it monitors healthy patients, or we'd be looking at, you know, unhealthy. So are we interested in what goes really wrong, and what might we be interested that goes really wrong? Are we looking at the brain? Are we looking at the spinal cord? Do we care about specific functions? So do I want to look at speech? Do you want to look at movement? Do you think the drugs, so the therapeutics, are cool? Do you think dreams are cool? Anything. So I just try and think very broadly about the topics that a student finds interesting at the start. And then, like I said, I'll sort of get them to go away and research a little bit about maybe what they find cool. So my recent student, we were looking at Parkinson's, and we refined it to specific movements and why they happen. And then we combined it with future therapeutic approaches. So we thought that was really interesting to see how it's going now, because we're having a lot of advancements in stem cell technology. So I thought that was quite cool to add in. So we added that in as well. And we're evaluating the efficacy of treatments. So that was kind of our avenue, but we just refined that from really having a conversation of, do you like healthy or unhealthy? Unhealthy. Which part do you think's cool? Movement. And then you go from there. And then once we do that, I break down the question into 3 topics, and we'll do at least 3 presentations on those the specified topics, do some writing, feedback, and sort of just go from there, really.
Okay, thank you so much.
Harriet, I have a question for you. And I know I'm not a student, but I'm just curious.
Of course.
So because we're surrounded by AI in so many avenues of our life, how do you strike the balance of ethically incorporating AI in research? Because I feel like, especially when you're working with sensitive or any human-related data, how much do you incorporate AI into your research process, and also how much do you encourage students to make use of it, but where do you draw the line that, okay, you know, this is what you've got to do on your own, sort of?
Mm-hmm. I think that's such a brilliant question, and I've been thinking about that a lot recently. I'm writing something at the moment and doing a new topic for me, which is bioinformatics, so coding, and I am by no means a computer genius, so I'm finding it really difficult, and I was finding myself using ChatGPT all the time. And this was me being a bad researcher, and I kept using ChatGPT to learn how to code, and I got it done, but I didn't really learn much. And someone came over to me in my lab and I said, please help me, I can't get this code working. It's like, how do you not understand? You know, it's 3 columns. And I was like, I just put it into ChatGPT. And this it was terrible. And he spent 3 hours trying to go through it with me. And I finally learned, and now I can code, and I would have never learned if I just relied on ChatGPT. So I think when you're first starting to do something, you need to do it on your own. I think there's ChatGPT, there's Copilot, there is writing assistants, there is all manner of AI help out there, but I would always emphasize at the very start doing it yourself. And then when I think turn to AI when you're really clueless. So when you really can't think of it, or you want even a reference for something. So what I'll do sometimes is say, so can hypertension cause an astrocyte to dysfunction? And if I can't find it out myself, I'll put it into ChatGPT and say, give me the references, and I'll take the references and explore it myself. But I would always say at the very start of a learning journey, using any kind of AI, you won't really learn anything. You're so much better off doing that hard groundwork yourself, and it makes everything easier after that. When you have a really niche question that you need answering, ask something like an AI platform, but make it to give you references and check the references, because sometimes it is wrong. So that is me being a terrible researcher, so I hope that's helped. That's how I think you should use AI. I mean, the writing assistants are great, so something like Grammarly, if it's endorsed by a big institution, then I think you need to just take it with caution, but definitely at the start of a research journey, just do the groundwork yourself, and everything else will come a bit easier later on, I think.
Understood. Thank you so much for addressing
that question, though. That was a brilliant question. Has anyone else got a question? I'll just check.
Yes, I have one question. Hi, my name is Onur. Firstly, thank you for your presentation. My question is, how does the application process work? How do you admit students?
Right, so I think Yash might be better equipped to answer this question for you.
Yash is not here at the moment.
Okay.
But basically what we do is, just to give you like a very general overview of it, is when a student applies, we essentially review their application, try to understand what their area of interest is and where they got their reference from and what they're looking for essentially. And then we put them through an interview just to see what fit, how they'll fit into our curriculum and our program, and if they're going to be able to meet our commitments, because research is it's beyond just like your academic commitments. So we just try to ensure there's no right or wrong way to interview a student, but what we're trying to see is if the student is motivated enough to do something on their own and if they're going to make time for it. So yeah, and then we try to understand if we are able to match them with a mentor from their area of interest. And yeah, that's essentially like a very general overview of how it goes. If I was able to answer your question.
Yes, you answered perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So to wrap it up, thank you, Harriet, and thank you, Kushi, for spending time for Sunday evening with us and giving all this information to my students. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I hope it was helpful.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for joining, and thank you, Harriet. You did it. You did such a brilliant job, and
Thank
we really
you.
enjoyed listening to you. So yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. I hope it was great. So yes, thank you for organising it as well. It was brilliant to organise.